Predictable podcasts. There's a million of them out there, babbling about the same old boring stuff. But trust me, my friend, this is not one of them. This is Diary of a Bald Man. He's bald, and he's completely off his damn rocker, and I love that about him. Safety, dinosaurs, relationships, the many uses of a can of Raid in the bedroom. Hold on. Did I read that right? What the f*** happened there? All right. Let's do this. Welcome to Diary of a Bald Man. Now your host, the cue ball himself, Alan Wooford.
Hey sinners, welcome to the shit show. This is Alan Wooford and you're listening to Diary of a Bald Man. Now, one of the things that's going to make this show a little bit unique and a little bit different, we're actually releasing this on September 30th for the International Podcast Day. And it's kind of special, we're kind of excited. We've got put into the top 10 slate for the podcast awards, the People's Podcast Awards. And one of the things, that we're looking forward to is from some of the people, some of the listeners, subscribers, my sinuses are killing me, but people that have helped and developed this show over the past 2 years, a lot of thanks and to our listeners goes out to them. We're not as impactful as some of the other shows that's out there, but obviously we have a reach. Obviously we have a group of listeners that thought it was good enough that, they put us in, they voted for us, and we're transitioning from just being out, flapping my lips and beating my gums to death, literally, over topics that we thought only a few people like and listen to what we now recognize as a global reach. Just through Spotify alone, we have listeners that we know of in England, Ireland, Australia, South America, Europe, Asia. And some of the feedback we're getting through the website, from the recent shows that we've done with safety professionals, people from my past, things that they just didn't think about because it's outside the scope of where they're geographically located or their profession. And that's one of the things that we wanted to look at today. I am privileged to be joined by Aaron Sullivan, who recently retired from the United States Army. But it's not just the fact that he retired from the military, that he also lives in Tennessee, but the fact that this relationship got started by him reaching out and communicating with me on LinkedIn. As he was preparing to transition from where he was currently stationed at the time and to where he is now, I myself have developed and grown because he helped me to recognize things where I was lacking or missing. Aaron, welcome to the show, and how are you, brother?
Thanks, buddy. Hey, things are going pretty well today. I got a brisket that I just pulled out of the smoker, so it's resting in the oven. I figure I'll pull that out around dinner time, and hopefully it turned out all right.
Okay. Well, you just recently had a birthday, so how old are you now?
Big 4-0. Yep.
40.
Big 4-0.
Jesus, 20 years ago I was 40. Wow. I suck at math. It was actually 15. I was just trying to add some age to it. And were you prepared for the big 4-0?
Honestly, I told my wife last night, I'm like, I don't feel the same as I did yesterday. So I guess it's the same thing.
Well, Aaron, for everybody that's joining us right now, would you let them know where you're calling in from?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm calling in from Maryville, Tennessee, or as the locals call it, Maryville. This is actually my hometown. But, after a long time of being away, felt like now was the time to head back to the roots. I got a family, got a little one. And, here we are.
Well, that's interesting. Now, for everybody that's outside of Tennessee, for Yankees and people elsewhere, where is Maryville in relation to Tennessee? I mean, I know where it's at, but I just wanted you to describe it.
Sure. Yeah. So on the eastern side of Tennessee, just south of Knoxville, it takes me about 25, 30 minutes to get to downtown Knoxville. So if you're going straight up Chattanooga into Kentucky on I-75, just south of Knoxville, to the east of 75 is where Maryville's at. We've got a beautiful view of the Smoky Mountains, and it's a perfect little gateway to the Smokies.
Okay. So if people were come out there and visit you and they said, well, I don't want to eat brisket because I'm a vegan, outside of telling them how to get the hell out of the area, what would you suggest in that location where you're at? What would be a great place for them to visit? What would be an attraction out there other than to just drive by your house and see your face? But what's something your location is notable for?
Well, for people that have been in the military, familiar with Fort Sam Houston, Sam Houston is from here. This is his hometown as well. Uh, but as far as the cuisine side of the house, I do make a mean Brussels sprout. Nah, I could cook all
No,
day, and I
nobody
love
eats
cooking.
Brussels sprouts, man. I mean, that's
What's the
just
baby
nasty.
cabbage stuff, man?
It's aborted cabbage. Aborted cabbage.
It's the B
Jesus.
words. I just get messed up with them. Now, really, we have a lot of good Mexican places. Of course, it could just be my perception of that, because after spending so much time in the north, the last 12 and a bit years, my taste for traditional Mexican food is I've been fiending for some. So now that we've moved back down here, I'm hitting them all up. But
Good deal.
there's a few good places around, a couple of good local coffee shops and stuff like that as well, which is right up my alley.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of culinary taste, just to give an idea for, all of our veterans and those currently enlisted, what was your absolute favorite MRE?
Oh my goodness. It definitely was not chili mac, and if it has eggs in it, I'm not touching it.
Hmm.
But I would have to go. Let's see. There's a ravioli. One of the
Your sh-
ravioli dishes. I like those, man. That
I
and the
don't remember
fettuccine
seeing any pasta
Alfredo.
dishes. Huh.
Dude, you've been out for a millennia.
Jesus Christ. I know. I mean, when I went in, we still had sea rations. And
Yeah.
and
Well, I
then
was
in
out for the Civil
86,
War.
I, well, Civil War. Fucker. I'll take my musket and I'll shove it right up. Okay, so we were talking about the sea rations and stuff like that. I mean, I remember T-rats, and I remember when I was at Fort Knox in '86, they're like, "Oh, collect all the MREs. We had an issue with botulism," and we just thought, man, this stuff was made by Taco Bell the way it was blowing out of us. So, okay, good deal. So, one of the things, now that, you're back into the civilian thing, let's step back a little bit. Prior to you transitioning, coming back to Murrayville, I mean, I, I need to tell people, when we're talking about coffee for a second, Aaron and I were going to go see a client, and Aaron said, you know what? Let's stop at this location near the Tennessee North Carolina border because we'd made the time. I mean, Aaron had a schedule down. And he brought out, a camping stove, and he brought out his coffee pot, and we were right next to, I want to say like a water hydro plant, and it was gorgeous. And he just made coffee out there in the middle of the fucking woods, and we didn't cuddle, we didn't have time, but the coffee was amazing. And so the man's serious about it. I mean, he carries a kit. It's ballistically protected in a Pelican case.
Yeah, it's my coffee block.
There's a series of combinations that you have to get to just to get to it, and I loved it. But
The
Aaron,
valuable things you keep close.
yeah, I was just thinking that. I was just thinking that. And it was one of those moments that I was telling you guys about. That Aaron reflected one of his passions, but one of the things I missed just stopping somewhere, taking a break. That work life balance stuff. And, when we get into this, Aaron, one of the things I'd like to ask you for those that are joining us, I want to talk about the transition. But
Yeah.
before you transitioned out of the military, what were you doing? And what was it that, reached out to you and said, hey, join the military, join the Army, get in this specific MOS? And could you tell us how you transitioned out of the civilian side into the military side? And then we'll build that up.
Sure, let's put it this way. I sucked at college. So at the time, I was going to college and I was not doing very well in the academic portion. Social life was pretty good, but the academic portion, as is, I guess, the norm for a young kid, was not doing so hot. But I really didn't feel like that was the right way. I needed to stick with things, and so I was going through a bit of a dilemma. Okay, what do I do if I'm not going to do this? And I started looking around. Well, I know I love aviation. My dad was taking me to air shows since I was just a little kid. So I started looking through military service and different aviation fields through all the branches. Uh, but what I found out was that the Army was the only one that could guarantee you your job, your MOS, in your contract. I mean,
Well,
provided you pass all the schooling and stuff like that.
right. Now, when you were
So
thinking about college, did you not think about like aviation, like Embry Riddle or something like that? Or were you looking at something outside of aviation when you went into school?
no, I was actually going to a Bible college in Missouri, and my parents are missionaries in Australia, and I was actually looking at going back to Australia and either joining up with them or kind of branching off and starting my own sort of thing out in the outback,
Roger
uh,
that. Okay.
kind of a remote place. But yeah, so I wasn't looking at aviation universities or anything like that. But whenever I noticed that the Army could guarantee your MOS or your job in your contract and you're not going to get pulled this way or that, I figured that was going to be my best way. So I started looking into Army aviation, saw they had a Blackhawks, kind of fell in love with the platform. And I figured my path was going to be a maintainer, crew chief, so I'd be in charge of everything in the back, door gunner, and all that good stuff. And then work my way up to the front seat as a pilot. That way I knew how it worked, why it worked, how to fix it, and then how to operate the thing. Well, one of those things did not happen, and that was the latter. So I put in for warrant officer candidate school on 3 different occasions, but fully qualified, not select. And then just stuck out the rest of my time as a enlisted guy on the maintenance and the crewing aspect of it.
Well, and that with all that, I mean, I'm sure there were unique challenges, to get to each level of that.
Right.
And, it was surprising. You went to college to look at, going into, possibly going into religion and going out back into Australia and stuff. But you never thought of being a chaplain or a chaplain's assistant in the military. You just kind of went into aviation. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was, at the time, I was really needing a departure from where I was.
Okay.
And departure was found at that time.
Well, and there's nothing to say, that sometime in the near future or later, some type of theology or something may come into you again, and you get that feeling of, hey, you know what? Let me focus on this. But
Absolutely. I mean, we've got a great church here right now and
good.
surrounded by some just amazing people.
Okay. And see, I like that. I like that you got that kind of support and your background, especially, you were talking about being out in Australia and your parents being missionaries and things like that. But was it difficult when you came back CONUS? And for those who are listening, not familiar with that, CONUS stands for Continental U.S. OCONUS is where he was at or what he was at while he was in Australia. Did you have a difficult transition coming from, the farmlands or the outback and not being able to wrestle with, kangaroos and stuff? Was that difficult coming back to the U.S.? I mean,
No,
slapping
actually,
dingoes around? I don't know. I don't know.
yeah, maybe a dingo took your baby. But no, actually, I had a pretty smooth transition back into things, especially just keep the transition going, keep them busy, and then straight into college, straight into work. And yeah, that really was a non-issue. A comical note, though, whenever I came back, Steve Irwin and I, or Crocodile Dundee, whichever one of those you want to use as far as an accent baseline, I could have given them a run for their money as far as a bushy Australian accent. But joining the army during basic training, that was garnishing far too much attention. So within a couple of weeks, that was gone.
And for those that do not know, Aaron is a top level linguist. One of the things that I caught my attention, I was following him on Facebook surreptitiously, and his wife had a unique vocabulary challenge. Aaron, if you would you please say, Sally sells seashells on the seesaw, but with a southern dialect?
So yeah, that was a great video. So my wife was going through some of my old art books that I made whenever I was little. So we're talking 6 and 7 years old. So the one I was referring to here is my spelling of the word seesaw. It had an L at the end of it. So it
It was
in
beautiful.
my
That was
7 year old
some
voice, it
really
was
bushcraft
seesaw.
stuff.
Seesaw is how you say it down there.
But the tears that your wife had in her face,
Oh my
Erica, I
goodness.
laughed so hard, but it looked like she got pepper sprayed. She was laughing so hard,
It
the
really
tears were
did,
going.
yeah.
And
Absolutely right.
I noticed your artistic talents have stayed the same. I mean, it's really amazing to see what you've accomplished over the years.
I'm still great at stick figures, man.
Well, brother, let me ask you this. So, you know, being in the military, what would you say was your favorite duty station? Was it CONUS? Was it OCONUS? What was one of the
Mm,
things, especially looking at your background? So same with me. I grew up in a military family, so it wasn't because of the parents' work, in religion, but being an Air Force and going around seeing different cultures. But while you were in the Army, what was one of your favorite duty stations, whether it was TDY, PCS, where you really enjoyed the culture where you was at?
we did just over 6 years in Germany and absolutely fell in love with it. Germany is one of those places, at least outside of the major cities. I can't speak to the major cities, but in the rural communities where we were, the sense of community was top notch. I mean, these are, like I said, rural farming communities, and you get to know your neighbors and like I said, the sense of community, the get-togethers, the cookouts. As long as you're willing to make an effort and get out and meet the local populace, they're very receptive. As long as you try to speak a little bit of German, you may butcher it, but as long as you're making the effort and not just being as so sadly typical as standoffish American, um, they're happy to receive you and bring you into the fold, so to speak. But that was a phenomenal place to be. And whenever we came back to the U.S. after Germany, we ended up in a small agricultural town in upstate New York, about 45 minutes from the Canadian border. And what a perfect transition back to stateside life. I mean, we're talking the town that we were living in was, I'd definitely say less than 500 people. It was just a nice place, that same sense of community. And with the North Country winters, it is evident why the sense of community is there. I mean, you really sometimes have to rely on each other. It's a beautiful thing, truly a gorgeous thing.
I like that. You go from one environment to the other. So, for those that are in the service that are, in the lower ranks, like E3, E4, E5, if they're getting ready to deploy or PCS, to Europe, what would be something that you would suggest to them to help that transition into, you're talking about learning German? Did you use any language apps, or did you study the location prior to getting on site? Did you have a sponsor that helped you go over customs and courtesies? But what would you
Right.
tell somebody preparing, to transition into that environment?
The biggest thing, and this is probably the most common thing why you'll hear somebody say they hated Europe, is they stayed in the barracks where they stayed on post and they did not get out unless it was a boss trip, which is better opportunity for single soldiers, or uh, MWR, Morale Welfare Recreation Program, that was led by other service members. Yeah, get out among the locals, go see people. I did have Duolingo on my phone. I was going through that, but that's not how I learn. It's just not. and I'm more of a face-to-face type learner. So
Okay.
when we got there, I got a bicycle, and cycling's huge in Europe, especially there where we were. And I really got into the cycling scene. After getting into the cycling scene, the majority of the people that I was riding with were German, and just by proximity, I developed my vocabulary with them, and they were more than happy to teach me and tell me when I've really screwed up,
Oh,
laugh at my horrible German jokes, and yeah, it was great.
that's good that you have feedback. How do you say seesaw in German?
I would have to ask a local on that one because that is barely translatable into proper English.
That, and I like how you put that. That was one of the things my dad was adamant about. But before we went to like Guam and the Philippines and things like that, back in the day, we had a series of books called Encyclopedia Britannica. I don't even know if they exist anymore or that they sell them. But he'd pull up like cultural information, and we'd learn about, and this is one of the reasons I'm such a huge history buff. His dad would have us get these out and study the culture, look at the diverse foods, look at vegetation, and we'd learn some of that. And then as soon as I got, boots on the ground, I'd meet the kids. I'd get out and I'd try fried rat, fried monkey, whatever the fuck they were feeding me. Um, and once I got a few of the keywords down, I was like, how do you cuss like this so my parents don't know when I'm swearing? Unfortunately, dad was briefed well ahead of what those words were. And it was amazing how quickly he tuned me up to reculturalize.
It's
So,
amazing how immaturities do not change throughout
no.
generations because that's usually the first thing that people want to know is how do I cuss in German?
Oh, man. And it was so funny. My dad knew ahead of time. It's like, you thought you got away with that. And I
Not
did.
so clever now.
I and hell, I'm over 50 now, and I'm still thinking he still doesn't know what I said to him. And he looks at me and says, I just know for a fact he does.
He's probably listening in right now thinking, oh, really?
Oh, God, I hope nobody in my family's listening to the crap I say. Anyhow, so brother, you get done in Germany, you PCS back to the States. What was the transition from your flight status into your status as safety? How, because I ask this because a lot of guys are afraid, to get out of their primary MOS because it's what they know. It's what they tested for, to get up
Right.
the rank and to get through. But what helped you make that transition and how did it end up being safety and instead of, being back on your tools or something like that? What was the catalyst?
Burnout. Burnout was my catalyst. So over the years, I had filled a couple of small, very insignificant company safety NCO gigs, but nothing where that was actually my job title. This is another one of the 100 things that they put on your plate that you're just the additional duty NCO for, which NCO, for those listening, non-commissioned officer, just the enlisted side, more of your leadership echelon. But uh, after we got back from the 2019-20 deployment in Afghanistan, which was, by the way, mid-COVID, my goodness, I hope to never do something like that again. But COVID made it rough. But I was a bit broke up in physical sense. I had some shoulder issues that I had been pushing off, other injuries that I'd just been pushing off for a while. And after that deployment, I just hit burnout, absolute burnout, where it took me a while to admit it, but within a couple months of being back, I went to my sergeant major and said, "Look, Sergeant Major, I've become more of a detractor from the team at this moment than I am a contributor. I'm doing more harm than good. I've got this shoulder surgery coming up, and that's going to be, from what I'm hearing, about a 9-month recovery. So, is there any way that I can step away from the line, take a knee for a little bit, and just get my head straight? Do you have an admin job or something I can have?" It just so happens that one of my buddies is our battalion safety officer. And he went to Sergeant Major and said, "Hey, I know this guy. I work well with him. Can I have him as my safety NCO for the battalion? Because we have this upcoming inspection, arms inspection, for those of you who are familiar, and we need him to prep for it." I was all for the idea. A couple of days later, Sergeant Major gave the thumbs up for that. So I had my shoulder surgery, had my convalescent leave for that, and went back to my old company, closed out the administrative stuff, and then started working at the battalion safety office and fell in love with the safety gig. I really did. It was the interaction with people, having your fingers in the logistics, the planning, the day-to-day risk mitigations of the unit and the different missions that they'll be doing, training or uh, troop movement from home station to a training site or anything like that. I just really fell in love with it. Had a great mentor, Bobby S. Garcia, fantastic dude. He, Alex Druin, were a couple of the battalion safety officers at the time, and they gave me a chance, and I did what I could to learn from it. And then a buddy of mine, I have a lot of buddies, by the way, he was at the brigade safety office as the NCO, and he came up MQ, most qualified for the E8 list. So he was going to go down and fill a first sergeant position at a battalion.
Nice.
Our brigade sergeant major was in our office. We were just having a chat. He used to be our old battalion sergeant major. And so I kind of joked around, "Hey, sergeant major, I hear Jason's going to go down and fill a first sergeant position. Let me know if you need me to come up and fill that spot." "Oh, okay, Sully. Yeah, I'll let you know." I started
God, I
thinking
bet your
about it.
nose looked like it had a half a pound of kiwi on it.
Yeah,
I'm
it's more like
kidding. Maybe a
it's more like a
quarter pound.
coconut. More like a coconut. But nah, I called the wife late after that happened, and I said, "Look, babe, this is actually a thing I think I could get, but know this: if we get the brigade safety and zero job, being this close to the end, I'm not moving up in rank anymore. Like this is it, and we're retiring at 20." And so we had a quick chat about pros and cons, and then I emailed the sergeant major later that day. "Hey, sergeant major, what's it going to take to make this thing legit?" 3 days later, I got an email saying, "All right, I've cleared it with everybody. 1 June, I want you up here." So that was that. And then I was the brigade safety NCO, which a unique thing for Army aviation is that green suiters, actual service members, are the only ones at the brigade level, or aviation's the only one that has green suiters at the brigade safety office. Usually they're civilian contractors, and the rest of the brigades, sustainment and infantry brigades. So it was a unique position to be in, and an honor to be working directly for the man. And yeah, even more, fell in love with the job.
See, that's one of the things that, I like is when people fall in love with it and when they enjoy it, because I had no intention over the years of going into safety. It was a part of what I was doing, but I never once thought, okay, like you did, and you had your friends and you saw the benefits of supporting the community, the aviation community, being part of, the tribe that you were in with 10th Mountain. And I never thought about that. And with you, you knew that, okay, I'm going to accept this position. I get to be part of the community. I get to be with the flyers and the players and, the warrants and stuff. And so you had, your background that helped you with it because you understood them, you understood the airframes, and, things like that. And you knew that you were going to have a date where you said, hey, after 20, I'm retiring. So let's talk about that. You've got all this time in safety with aviation. And how long was that total for aviation safety?
For aviation safety, it was 3 years
So
in the seat.
okay, in the seat. So your time is coming up. And for those that are listening, I want you to listen to this carefully because, when Aaron was making preparations to come back to Tennessee, and preparing for that transition. What was some of your concerns, Aaron? Were you trying to find an aviation safety, but a civilian side? What were you originally looking for when you reached out to me?
So I had been on LinkedIn and Indeed, all the job sites, looking for just a safety or quality control, production control. I mean, I conducted all those positions over the years in Army aviation. So I was looking for any type of a job like that. I mean, I had a number in mind as far as salary goes, but that really wasn't the big, the number one priority. The number one priority was finding something that I enjoyed doing that paid well enough for my family to live off of, which the cost of living down here in Maryville is quite a bit higher than what it was in upstate New York.
Well, I
But
can I can imagine to some degree
yeah,
it is.
this is, you look it up, this is like one of the highest real estate markets in the US right now. But yeah, I just wanted something that would provide for my family and give me time with my family. If it was going to be something that would take me away, I might as well have just stayed in the military.
Right. And as you were preparing and looking for that, what were some of your concerns? I mean, if you looked at your LES and you had your housing allowance and things like that, was that something that concerned you? You know, you're getting ready to retire, you're going to get a civilian position, and you're going to get your LES or leave and earnings statement for those that aren't familiar, and you weren't going to get paid for housing. You weren't going to have like all the insurance and stuff that the military provided. And was that a concern? Was that something that you and Erica had to consider? And it's like, like you said, I need to find a job that's going to be able to pay for these things that are missing off my LES.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, like I said, was the being able to provide for my family. And so that was an obvious concern. But my wife, she's a champ. She said, I got to give her kudos for this. She said, look, it really doesn't matter if we're living in a cardboard box. As long as the three of us are together, we're good. And while I still strive to find that magic job that will, provide the income and the time with them, which I found a pretty darn good job now. But uh, having her say that takes a lot of the pressure off because having a supportive spouse in that kind of a situation, even if we're both working, it's great to know that she's not looking at me as strictly the paycheck, or I'm with this guy because he's going to give me
Right, right,
what
right.
I say I need. Now she's with me for me and for our family, and that's a very, very refreshing thing in today's day and age.
Well, see, I like that you got that support. I had friends back when I was in the service, and they'd get ready PCS, or some of the guys that were Vietnam era getting ready to retire, and they just said, "Look, this is where we're going. This is what we're going to do. This is what we are going to have available to us." And we'll work it out when we get there. There was some planning on some of them. I don't think they had the programs back then like they do now.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
So, what with you and the wife talking about things, and when you took that opportunity to say, okay, let me reach out and try and find somebody, um, you know, I I was lucky that you were able to come down and intern with me. But how did the military help you prepare to transition out of, a very regimented and a very, you know, I don't want to say they dictated everything, but I mean, you as an NCO, you had a set schedule, you had things like this, and
Sure.
it was regimented. But how did they prepare you to go from something where you have massive amounts of support, infrastructure, leadership, continuity, and things in the background? So if something failed, that you could get that. How did they prepare you for coming back into the civilian life? What was it they did for you?
So this is a cool part. And for those of you that are in the military and looking to part ways here before too long, takes a couple of notes here. So they've just changed the name of it in the Army, I think a month or so ago. I'm not sure what it's called right now, but it'd be similar to what it was. It's SFL TAP. Soldier for Life Transition Assistance Program. So throughout SFL TAP, you've got, I mean, it's congressionally mandated that all posts will offer this service now to help service members transition over to the civilian sector, give them the tools and the resources that they need to succeed. Everything from resume writing classes to how to use your GI Bill to how to conduct a job interview, how to look for jobs, how to do a budget, because there's a lot of people out there that don't know how to do a budget. So I mean, they had those classes as well. How to use your healthcare benefits, how to use this and that. There are so many courses available through the transition program. It's mind-boggling. And as a retiree, I was eligible to sign up for that 2 years out from the retirement date. If you're just exiting the service at your ETS date, then it's a 1 year thing. You're able to do it the last year of your service. But it is what you put into it. There, unfortunately, were a lot of service members that were sitting through these classes expecting all of these contracted civilians to do all the work for them, like write their resume for them or help them make phone calls to different companies and set up interviews and stuff like that. And that's not what this is about. Now, this is about giving you the resources and the understanding of how they work so that
Now,
you
Aaron, I'm sorry,
better
brother.
yourself.
Now, is this only for retirees or anybody
No,
exiting
no,
service?
it's anybody exiting the service.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, I did. I just wanted to make sure, that everybody understood. It's not just if you're retiring. I
Right.
mean,
No,
if you fulfilled your contract obligation.
exactly.
I'm sorry. Please
Exactly.
continue.
I mean, even for like a med board, it might be a little bit of a condensed timeline, but you're still eligible to participate in these programs once you find out that, yes, I am going to be medically let go from the service.
Oh, yeah, that would
But
have been nice.
yeah, no kidding. No, it's a phenomenal program. And like I said, there's some real rock stars in these program leadership areas that, they helped me come up with a good resume. And I think it's pretty decent. Uh, I went through, jotted down some notes, sat down with the guy, and he's like, "This it sucks." He said, "You've got to go back and put some real time into this." So I went back and did some online research about how to translate my job title in the military to job titles that are commonly found in the civilian sector. Went back and he's like, all right, I think we're almost there. So, it's the openness of these offices and these people that work to really support our service members that made it all possible. And the thing that really helped out was what's called the CSP program, Career Skills Program. And that's what led me to the internship with you. It is a period of time, and it, they have a lot of different regulations stipulating mileage away and days allowed and all that good stuff. So just dig in and read it. But it's basically you're still paid by the military, you're still covered by their health care, you're still on the books, you're just on a permissive TDY status that allows you to conduct an internship with a civilian corporation in hopes that you can land a job with them, but it's not required of that company to hire you, but it does give you the opportunity to get back in touch with your civilian self and learn the ways of your local populace wherever you're trying to get out and see how the business works on the outside, so to speak.
Yeah, and,
That
and
was a
that was
cool thing.
beneficial. When you were sending us the information, and I was working with the office, trying to get it in because normally all the interns went up there, and you had such an impact. When Donnie met you, and when others were communicating with you, the idea behind it was, yeah, we didn't know we were going to be able to hire you, and now you're with us. You're not just a trainer and a safety consultant. You've helped me over the past few months actually conducting classes and audits and things like that. And one of the things that I really admired, especially like when you and I were conducting training, the responses that you and I received from clients when we were in the Clarksville area, whether we were in West Knoxville, and how the guys were relatable to you. Because that's something the military prepared us for, that PLDC
Hmm.
and all these leadership development courses and BNOC and whatever they call them these days.
Yeah, yeah, you're
Um,
old.
yeah. But, one of the questions that I wanted to ask, and, for people transitioning, look at what he's talking about, plan, prepare, communicate. Same thing I say in every podcast. But one thing, Aaron, I wanted to ask you, one thing I'm starting to see, with some of the clients that you and I are going to with these other veterans, especially after a prolonged, career like you had, when you're transitioning, outside of finding billeting for you and the wife and getting into a community that's agreeable for you and your family, do you have fear of, like, what if this job hadn't have panned out? Is there anything in place these days to help you deal with the stresses of, I got out and I'm having an issue with this? And is there any type of support after you retire, that we're seeing more of this with some of the clients, with some of the
Hmm.
veterans are getting out
Hmm.
and getting into training. I don't know if they still use the GI Bill, but is there things or structures in place to help you if, when you thought you got, luckily we received you, we got
Yeah,
you in, and that
yeah.
was through your own hard work. But for others not going to safety consulting, maybe into a different MOS, sorry, you know how it is. Going into a different career field, are there things, as far as you know, in place to help them transition, retrain? Is there something like that available?
Yeah, there are. I mean, you can look up vet centers all over the U.S. and Knoxville's got one actually. And while these places may not be, they're not job placement offices by any means, but what they can do is they have counselors that will volunteer their times, or veterans that will volunteer their time to help other veterans that are dealing with some hardships. And I've thought about going up there and seeing what would be involved in doing that myself. But uh, there are resources and there are people in place that will help you through the hardships that are either associated with your time in, or just the change of pace and the change of the lifestyle going back into the civilian sector. These people have experience and they will walk you through it. And these resources are open and available to you as veterans. You just got to take advantage of it. And like you were saying, I really, really lucked out. I was very blessed to have this opportunity with the company. And specifically, you being a veteran, I could not have asked for a better mentor in this pursuit, because you know the lingo. You have time as a veteran yourself. You've had time as a contractor. You've been around it for a long time, so you know the intricacies. You know the lingo, and you know what's going through my head before I even open my mouth. And having your assistance and your support and guidance throughout this has been invaluable to me. So thank you so much for everything you've given me during this time.
No, brother, and I appreciate it, because and for those listening, part of the internship, and I'm telling you, I grew, if not much more than Aaron did, because I saw where I was shortcoming. I knew how to speak to him and to a lot of our clients that I've been working with over the past, you know, almost 3 years now. But one of the unique challenges that Aaron presented to me, and I was very grateful for, um, as he was coming out, I was like, okay, I generate these documents, and I generate these, and I do these. And this is what I do to prepare for a class. But with the stuff that Aaron was doing on the aviation side, doing on the military side, he was developing programs and plans, and like where I adjust PowerPoints for, a certain type of like environment, because you have youthful people, elderly people, and things. He brought this dynamic set of stuff that people responded to immediately. It drew them in, things like that, things that took the training that I had and information I had and just set it on fire. I didn't know this type of option was out there. Um, and in all honesty, too, in dealing with some of the clients that Aaron and I have dealt with that have, high numbers of veterans, having his recent views on challenges and things like that helped out too. So I was training, or I thought I was training, but as I was doing it and Aaron was providing feedback, my educational level shot up, and I've been doing this for a while, but one thing I'll always admit, I'm not a safety professional. I'm a safety practitioner because I'm always, looking at what Aaron and I are doing and trying to improve on it daily because our environment changes around us, the people we've been supporting. And Aaron was like a rocket in a world full of paper planes. He gave us lift. No, you did, brother. You gave us lift. I gave good messages, but you gave the messages the extra afterburner, because your recent exposure. And Aaron has such a great way to pull people in from his previous experiences, personal things he saw, things I tried to do, but since I've been doing safety for 3 years, I've not been in the field where I'm watching construction guys or working with aviation. So it's basically, I was regurgitating OSHA specific things to keep them safe, and Aaron gave it new life. So, it was mutually beneficial. Um,
For anybody listening to this, it sounds like we're about to lock lips or something like that. I mean, I
I
love
brought,
you, you
I
love
brushed,
me. This is,
dude,
yeah, it's a
I
good thing right
would,
now we're an hour away.
but with our facial hair, we would like, it'd be like Velcro, and
Velcro,
they'd
yep.
have, hold on. Okay. But that's one of the things, if you're looking to hire a veteran, if you're looking at to get somebody, not all the times that you reach out to somebody are positive things going to happen, because like I was just very fortunate. Aaron comes in, took a chance to let me, work with him. The company took a chance because, you know, you get all these great veterans and some are not so great. We've seen some of them too. Um, and it's hard because they separate themselves and from that support and infrastructure they had. Then they get out here and it's like companies don't always provide that same setting. So, Aaron, now that you are a consultant, now that you're a risk management,
I'm bona fide.
you're bona fide.
Hmm.
Um, you know, if you were to have a veteran, or soon to retire veteran or somebody getting ready ETS, something like that, what is something that you learned from your recent retirement, recent research, things like that, that was truly beneficial? I mean, like you said, they've got to be engaged. But what was
Hmm.
something that really helped you, lock in, hey, you know what, this is something I'm going to take a chance on and, I'm going to have
Yeah.
a backup plan. But what really helped you?
So really, LinkedIn was a huge thing for me. Being able to look out, see what kind of things are out there. I mean, yes, it's social media, and there's a lot of hoopla about social media these days. Some people will tell you that LinkedIn's not worth its weight, but I really garnish a lot from LinkedIn. You can look at different companies. You can look at what they're hiring for and do research on the company. Right then, they'll have links to their webpage. You can find out what their culture is like just by looking at the posts and the people that are associated with that business on LinkedIn.
I bet you
And
wish you would have checked out the company that we're with and said, no, I'm not working with Alan. Yep. Let me go
I
up to
tell you
Donnie.
what, this has
Damn, Alan.
been this has been an experience with this company. I mean, so far during the onboarding process, you're talking to different department heads, and I mean, you said it whenever I was doing the internship stuff, but it truly seems like there is a rock star that's leading each and every department.
Yeah.
I mean, including our boss. Donnie, love you. Just what? It's a great place to be. Yeah,
I can't make an
exactly.
ass kissing sound. I don't have one. I'm sorry. My apologies, Donnie.
That's true. You do. You are like a board. You do not have one at all.
You didn't say that when we were in Clarksville at the freaking La Quinta Inn, and I'm screaming like a banshee. Oh no, that was to turn
What
off the
happens in
lights.
Clarksville stays in
My
Clarksville.
apologies. I had the lights on. I do not have legs for well lit areas. Damn it.
Truth.
Well, Aaron, before we go, you've given out a lot of good information. Are definitely going to do another show because I want to follow up for veterans, and for our listeners that are going to be listening to the show right after the podcast awards, and do a follow up. Now that you're out, now that you're engaged, what are some things, that were beneficial, or maybe some things, now that you've been retired for a minute, that you say, hey, you know what, I would have changed this. I would have changed this location. Um, if Alan would have been more transgender or something like that, this would have been better for me. I don't know. But if people want to reach out to you, veterans or people getting ready to, complete their contracts, what would be a good way for them to reach out to you, get some of your insight, maybe get some feedback, and just have you as a sponsor on their
Yeah,
transition back to the civilian
absolutely.
side?
You can find me, as I mentioned, LinkedIn. I keep that up to date. My information is on there. Aaron Sullivan, AA Ron, and that, yeah, it's just
Hey,
please
Ron.
reach out to me on there. Drop me a note, and I'll be happy to reach back out to you and help you out how I can.
That is great, brother. And before we go, and gals, and anybody that is not specifically assigned any type of gender, like Aaron was talking about, like I said before, plan for everything. I mean, plan for failure. Have a backup plan. Talk, communicate with your family. Communicate with those in your environment and stuff. Prepare for the worst and the best. Communicate, engage. But one thing is never ever stop. We see so many in the veteran community that are not making it. They say 22 a day. It's a hell of a lot higher. I promise you that. But don't think you're a failure. You're just not in the right spot. You got to reshoot, get new grid coordinates, and move your ass in that direction. And reach out to people like Aaron and myself. We may not always have the best answer, but we'll give you an answer and we'll help you look in a new direction. And for all of our listeners, whether you're military, civilian, it doesn't matter. The same thing applies. You may not find an MOS or a job or a career skill that's fitting you right now, but stay at it until you find what you do.
Yeah,
Don't
and
give up hope.
if
Aaron,
I
go
can butt
ahead.
in just real quick.
Yes, please.
So, for the veterans out there, there's a mixed group on this one, but it's a very prevalent thing. Do not wrap your entire identity up in the uniform, because there comes a day when you
Absolutely.
take it off for the last time. And sure, you're always going to have your military buddies, and some of my army buddies are going to be undoubtedly close friends for life, where I could call them up and they drive across or fly across the country in a moment's notice. I know they would.
Oh, yeah. Roger
But
that.
do not wrap your identity up in the uniform. Wrap your identity up in the things that are going to be there after. You. Learn who you are. Invest in your family. Invest in you. That has got to be the number one piece of advice that I would give any transitioning service member.
Aaron, that was great. Especially a recent veteran. And guys, again, listen to what Aaron had to put out. This is recent. This is, and I mean, it's not for everybody. Everybody will have different, views and ideas on the best way to do it. But you got to find the right fit for you. Aaron, thank you for being here, brother. Thank you for taking,
Thanks for
your
having
time
me.
out from your smoking of your meat. I'm sure it's massive and it had to be handled a lot. And I appreciate your,
15
feed.
pounder today.
Okay, yeah, I know when you usually do it, you go big. But
Hmm.
thank you for the time, brother. Thank you for sharing this. For those listening, thank you for being here. And again, just look for the best thing you can in life. And if you don't find it immediately, keep on looking. God bless you, keep you. Aaron, I love you. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to work with you and for the opportunity to, you know, be a friend. And I hope that continues.
Thank you, buddy. Absolutely. I got your back.
All right, brother. God bless y'all. Again, this is coming on right after the podcast words. Hopefully, due to your subscribership, your listening, and everything, we served you well, and we'll look for it again next year. Thank you. Now get the hell out of here. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You've been listening to the Diary of a Bald Man. How do you feel? A little dizzy? Maybe a little nauseous? That was one hell of a ride, I know. It's our passion to make you feel as uncomfortable as possible. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, rate, and review the show. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, Google Alan the Safety Guy. You'll find all the socials there. Connect with us, or else. See you next time on Diary of a Bald Man.